Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Comings and goings at quarterback in the NFC South. This could be a really fascinating year. The one given is Tom Brady's going to be back in Tampa. Drew Brees out in New Orleans. Teddy Bridgewater could be out in Carolina with Sam Darnold now in. And what about Matt Ryan in Atlanta? He's 36 years old, and the Falcons have the 4th pick in the draft. We know right now the first 3 picks of the draft are going to be quarterbacks. But could the Falcons take Matt Ryan's successor? That's one of the questions that a lot of people have asked. Could it be Justin Fields? Could it be Trey Lance? Might the Falcons at 4 take one of the best quarterbacks in this draft? Well, Adam Schefter tweeted on Tuesday, with teams locked into the first 3 overall picks, the Atlanta Falcons now have received trade calls from multiple teams and are open to moving out of the number 4 spot per source. That's Adam Schefter earlier Tuesday. Effectively, what that means is that the Falcons aren't interested in drafting a quarterback. Well, I guess if the right guy is there at 4, they may take him. But they certainly seem open to moving out and allowing someone else to go into that spot to take either Justin Fields or Trey Lance, presumably, as everyone's expecting Lawrence, Wilson, Mac Jones to go 1, 2, 3. So it is interesting, too, with Atlanta not likely to select Matt Ryan's successor. Do you realize Matt Ryan's 36 years old? Aaron Rodgers is 37. But there's this perception about Ryan being old and maybe finished, and Rodgers still very much in his prime, which clearly he is, and maybe he is for Rodgers as well, being old. But at least with this news from Schefter, it appears as though we know Tampa will go into the season with Tom Brady, and it appears as though Atlanta is going to go into the season with Matt Ryan. So that leaves Carolina and the Saints in the NFC South. Now, Carolina, they've made their decision. They traded for Sam Darnold, and that is very likely going to be their reclamation project. Could the guy that's a former top 5 overall pick have his renaissance in Carolina around better players, a more competent organization? That's the hope for Carolina. The problem for Carolina is a year ago, they gave Teddy Bridgewater a buttload of money. And this year, Teddy Bridgewater is owed $17 million if he's on the roster with Carolina. So the Panthers are definitely looking to move Teddy Bridgewater. They have even told him he's open to speak to other teams about a trade. That's according to Ian Rappaport. The problem is, why would any team in the NFL give Carolina any type of asset to acquire Teddy Bridgewater only to pay him $17 million? There's no shot. What's going to happen is the Panthers, if they designate Bridgewater as a post-June 1st release, they would save $7.9 million. Now, he's still going to cost them, but they could save a bunch of cash if they release him after June 1st, which more likely is what's going to happen. So you're going to have all these teams go through free agency. They'll go through the draft, see how the dominoes fall, and then after the draft, those that still need a quarterback, either a potential starter or a veteran backup, might make a play for Teddy Bridgewater after the Panthers release him June 1st. The Panthers could decide to keep him and have Teddy Bridgewater as a really good backup option to Sam Darnold, but that feels unlikely at this point, considering they'd save $8 million if they release him post-June 1. The question is that a lot of people are asking today, would New Orleans be interested? And the answer should be, hell yeah, New Orleans should be interested. You could effectively get Teddy Bridgewater back on the same deal you had him on 2 years ago. 3 years ago, let me put it that way. I mean, let's get real here for a moment. I think we all know Jameis Winston is going to be the prohibitive favorite to be the starter in New Orleans. We can all agree on that. Everyone out there yelling and screaming about Taysom Hill, shout at the clouds if you want. Ain't happening. We all know what Taysom Hill is. Really good athlete, stinks as a quarterback, will never be a franchise quarterback, period. I've been telling you that for 2 years. You'll keep wanting to scream about it. It ain't happening in this league. That's why there's no market for him, and there'll never be a market for him. So, do you go into the season with Jameis and Trevor Siemian? With Hill doing his Hill role, which I love, by the way. Love Taysom Hill. Team guy, great athlete. Love him in the Taysom Hill role. Don't love him as a quarterback. Do you go into the season with Jameis, Trevor Siemian, and Taysom Hill? Or would you rather bring back Teddy Bridgewater? If Teddy Bridgewater is released by Carolina post-June 1, and you can bring a guy into your system who's a great locker room guy, who started 5 games for you, won them all 2 years ago, was a starting quarterback this past year in Carolina, knows your division, and you could bring him back in as, at worst, the backup to Jameis Winston, give me that all day. Now, if there's an opportunity from, let's say, maybe New England, maybe who knows what happens in Houston with Deshaun Watson. Is there an opportunity to be a starter with the Texans? I don't know. Maybe in Denver, who never seems to be settled at that position. Maybe it's Drew Lock. Who knows? Maybe there's that opportunity for Teddy. Or maybe he does what Jameis did and comes back on a bargain basement 1-year deal and is a backup and sees next year if he can get an opportunity somewhere on the market. I would be 100% on board with the Saints bringing back Teddy Bridgewater after Carolina releases him in June to be the backup and say farewell to Trevor Siemian, and then Teddy's on a bargain basement deal as your backup. Or maybe he goes and competes with Jameis and beats him out. Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. And then there is this story. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN was at Florida's Pro Day and observed Kyle Trask. And yes, the Saints were observing Kyle Trask, as you'd expect. And Jeremy Fowler went on SportsCenter and said, quote, there was a little buzz that the Saints like him, Trask, at Florida's Pro Day. Quote, so they got Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill this year. Maybe they get a guy like Trask, get him in your building development. He can be an option in 2022. They could at least look into that in the later rounds. Now, realistically, when you talk about the later rounds, it doesn't seem like Trask would fall outside of round 2 or 3. He seems to be in that next tier with Kellen Mond and with Jamie Newman after those first 5 that everybody talks about. So later rounds doesn't really seem plausible. The question is, would you be okay with Kyle Trask coming in as a mid-round guy, or round 2 or 3 guy? Round 3 with a compensatory pick, I'd be okay with it. That's going to shock a lot of you because you know my feeling on Kyle Trask. But the reality is I feel like context matters, almost like anything. If I go to a great steak restaurant, I don't want a cheeseburger. I love cheeseburgers. Nothing against them. If I go to a burger joint, I would love a good burger. But if I'm going to a steak restaurant, I don't want a cheeseburger. Give me a giant cowboy cut ribeye, medium rare. Maybe that thing moo at me. Maybe rare plus, let it moo at me a little bit. Fired up for a glass of wine. So I'm talking about. That's my expectation. I like P.J. Williams as a dime back at $2 million. I don't like P.J. Williams as my boundary corner at $10 million. Context matters. You give me Kyle Trask with a 3rd-round pick that you can get in your building, let him sit over there, maybe learn, be that Chase Daniel perennial backup, or maybe even a guy that could start. Listen, it's happened. Mark Bulger was a 6th-round pick. Mark Brunell was a 5th-round pick. Rich Gannon was an MVP, 4th-round pick. Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. He was a 9th-round pick. Matt Hasselbeck, perennial playoff quarterback in Seattle, 6th-round pick. Mark Rippon won a Super Bowl. He was a 6th-round pick. Hell, Joe Theismann back in the day was a 4th-round pick. Tom Brady, of course, was a 6th-round pick. He's the great outlier, but there have been starting quarterbacks in the NFL to come out of the middle and late rounds. Maybe Trask could be that. I don't think so. I think he was the beneficiary of being surrounded by elite talent in that offense in Florida, and I don't think he's going to be a very good player at the next level. But if I could take a shot on him with a mid-round pick, bring him into the building, and let him see what he could develop into, that's much more palatable than telling me you're going to use the 28th overall pick on Kyle Trask or any quarterback in this draft. What do they do? I don't know. But the Saints have options, and they're going to need another quarterback outside of just Jameis Winston. Because Taysom Hill, if you want him in his Taysom role, you have to have another quarterback so that way he can be that versatile guy. Because you can't run the risk of him getting injured and then not having a backup quarterback. So who's it going to be? You've got options outside of Trevor Siemian. Maybe it's a guy you're familiar with in Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe it's someone you pull the trigger on in the draft. Time will tell. We'll know in about a month or so. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.